Welcome to selfdiscoverywisdom.com, formerly known as Self-Discovery Media. On these podcasts, you're going to hear people who speak from the heart. They've taken the journey in life. Many things have happened to them, but they've changed it to happening for them. And in their strength, their courage, they've discovered their abilities and their wisdom, and they are now sharing it here with you. Do enjoy each show. We bring it to you with love and knowing that it's going to help you on your journey of life. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everybody. Welcome back to another show called Central Expressions, right here on selfdiscoverywisdom.com. I am your host, Sarah Troy, and my guest is Sue William Silverman. We're going to be talking about she is the master of metaphor, and distills selected misdemeanors into sharp portraits of emotional missteps, contradictions, and quiet yearnings. We're going to be talking about her book today, but what has she written about? She's an award-winning voice behind Lovesick, One Woman's Journey Through Sexual Addiction, which was adapted into a Lifetime movie. How to Survive Death and Other Inconvenience. I think death could be an inconvenience. A master metaphor of a long-time teacher in creative nonfiction, Silverman, Sue, I think I prefer to call her, uses her each essay and the selected misdemeanors to reveal a kind of emotional misdemeanor, a misstep, a moment of contradiction, a wound that we give ourselves, and a yearning for something more. It's a collection of flash nonfiction misdemeanors. She explores small yet shimmering moments where hope and belonging weave themselves into life contradictions. The brevity of flash form allows us to capture meaning with precision. Each piece a distillation of memory, metaphor, and subtle irony. We're going to be talking all about that today. She is best known for Lovesick, One Woman's Journey Through Sexual Addiction, which was adapted into a Lifetime movie, Because I Remember Terror, Father, I Remember You, and the winner of the AWP Award for Creative Nonfiction. And her previous book, How to Survive Death and Other Inconveniences, I love that title, won the Gold Forward Indie Book and the Year Award with Clara Johnson Award and the Sue Williams Lecture. She's also authored, I'm probably not quite going to pronounce this right, Acetylene? Acetylene Torch Songs, written true stories into Ignite the Soul. I have a genre on Ignite the Soul, I love this, which won the IPI Silver Award, and she was a finalist for Forward Indie Awards. I would say that this lady is kind of doing okay. I think people are seeing what she is doing and absolutely rewarding that. I mean, there's so many things here I want to hit on. Let's first turn the clock back. How did writing start for you?
Well, it started really almost out of nowhere in that like growing up, I never kept a journal. I never wrote even sort of bad high school poems that one is want to write. I never wrote anything. And then I was in my mid-20s and in a not very happy marriage and um, didn't really have a job at that point. And literally one day, so this was back in the typewriter age. So, the dinosaur.
Oh my God, are we aging ourselves here?
Yeah. And so I went to the stationery store and I bought a ream of paper. And I just sort of rolled a piece of paper into my typewriter. And at that point, I thought I would be writing a novel. And I just started writing a novel. And all I can say is that growing up, I always read all the time. I grew up in the West Indies. We didn't even have television. So, I just read everything. And so I can certainly say that that probably contributed to it. But, I think I was just in a really unhappy place in my life. And somehow there was some little voice telling me, write, write, write. This is time to write. And so I did. And, I've written, I actually spent about 10 years writing really bad novels. I mean, they're terrible. And thankfully, they're not published because I would be very embarrassed. Um,
Just
so
a training ground,
it
training.
was.
Yeah,
No, it
yeah,
absolutely was. I mean, I was learning how to write.
yes.
And of course, that's what I learned writing. A lot of what I learned, I carried over into then creative nonfiction and memoir. Um, so that's how I started. It was very just kind of spur of the moment, seemingly out of nowhere, except that nothing is really out of
No.
nowhere. In the back of my mind, something was telling me, this is your life. This is what you have to be doing.
And thank God you listened, because I
Yes.
call that, the cosmic nudge, nudge, wink, wink. And if you don't pay attention, somewhere along the line, you're going to get the cosmic two by four, right? So you listened. And, who says you have to write the perfect novel straight off? As you said, you wrote things. It was really just for you to find your groove. Yeah.
Exactly, exactly. It was just, and I mean, yeah, I don't regret any of those 10 years that I spent writing fiction at all. I mean, I didn't end up with a good novel, but first of all, they were autobiographical in many ways. So I was beginning to sort of understand myself. So that was
Therapy.
very important. Yes. So that
Yeah.
was very important to lead me ultimately into creative nonfiction. And it was sort of, it gave me something to do. I mean, I just had to kind of really get myself focused and centered, and it did that. So it sort of kind of kept me going until, I ultimately then more found my voice in creative nonfiction.
Yeah, I think that, a lot of people are kind of living life by numbers, and they don't understand it isn't about this societal expectation. Well, now you must do this, and now you must do that, and you've reached this age now, so you must be that. And if you're not that, then there's something wrong with you. There, you're a failure. And I think, oh, let's take all that rhetoric garbage and throw it out and make our own self-discovery of who we are. And when we allow that little voice inside of us to guide us, I call it blind, deaf, and dumb in order to see, hear, and feel. It helps us just, okay, where am I meant to go? Because as human beings, we're not meant to do it on our own. There is divine force, whatever you want to call it, God, universe, spirit, source, energy, whatever it is, that's guiding us. And it comes forth in that inner voice. So, kudos for listening to it, but then
Thank
being
you.
patient with yourself, because really it was your therapy, right? In all that writing that you initially did, finding your style, and then finally finding something that you truly want to say and share. And how many people allow themselves, I'm going to write a book. Well, is your book out yet? Is your book out yet? Is your book out yet? You no, it will be out when it's ready to be out.
Yeah, that's really true. And I mean, the what I found to be really interesting is that so all those 10 years writing, people say, well, what do you do? And I would say a writer, and they would say, well, what have you published? And I said, nothing. And so
Yes,
they just sort of blew me off. Oh, it's just like a little, oh, Sue has a hobby, something
yes,
like that.
yes.
But here's what's really interesting to me. Then when I finally did switch over to creative nonfiction, and I wrote my first memoir, Because I Remember Terror, Father, I Remember You. And I submitted it to this Association of Writers and Writing Programs award series. Never in a million years thinking it would win. I mean, like, why would a book with that title? I don't think
Yes,
that's going to win, right?
brave
But
in itself. Yeah.
but it won. And then all of a sudden, everybody said, "Oh, Susan Writer." And but here's the fascinating part. 2 seconds before the book won the award, it's exactly the same book as 2 seconds after it won the award. I didn't
Mm,
change a comma, but all of a sudden, miraculously, oh, Sue's a writer now. I mean, this is coming from the outside world. I always knew. Once I
yes.
started writing, I believed in myself. I never doubted myself. I just kept plunging ahead. Okay, this novel didn't work, on to the next.
Mhm.
I never doubted myself. I really just knew I had to write. But it's so interesting how the outside world does uh, see you and how they determine success. Just sort of, just generally, not everybody, but that was the general thing is that, oh, well, Sue has a little hobby. Isn't that
Yeah.
sweet? And then, I mean, the book literally, that's not one comma has changed between 2 seconds before and 2 seconds after it won the award, but then people took it seriously.
Exactly. And it's amazing, how it has to have something like that to have the validation. Instead of somebody saying, "Oh, I'd love to read the book and judge for myself. How did
Yeah,
it move me?" You've got to
yeah.
wait for the stamp of approval. Well, why can't you be that stamp of approval?
Yeah, just, honor your own voice and your own work. And, so I teach at the low residency MFA program at Vermont College of Fine Arts. And that's what I really try to instill up into my students that because they always worry, am I good enough and all of that. And it's just you got to just keep going,
Yeah,
don't question that. Or they'll say, well, when am I ever going to get published? Don't worry about that. You just keep going.
yes. And submit, obviously.
Of
It's
course.
don't wait to be discovered. It is submit and put yourselves on many platforms, and just there is always a marketing side to it, right? And that's, I think, what a lot of my brother's a professional writer. He's a terrible marketer, right? And so, his sister marketing for him. So you've got to be prepared to do the podcast and to put yourself out there and promote yourself. And they're like, well, I don't want to promote myself. I just want to write. Well, unfortunately, that comes with the package these days. Um,
Well,
you know,
it does, but it's also, I mean, like say being on your podcast, yes, of course, a lot of it is marketing, but it's also having like just a really interesting
yes,
conversation with you,
yes.
I mean, like I enjoy it. And you get to see sort of what else is out there, what people are doing. And so to me, it's not just like, oh God, now I have to market. It's really like, what can I learn from this aspect of the business?
Mhm.
And how do I get to meet other people? I mean, where else would we meet? I mean, we
Yeah,
would.
exactly. Yeah, and but I'm always encouraging people to have podcast parties. Everybody listen to podcasts. Write what write it down, or what effect it had on you, or watch part it, and then share it afterwards. And all these different perspectives and point of views, just makes for a rounder understanding. So, I really encourage people to have a podcast party. A glass of wine, a cup of coffee, chitter chat afterwards, and it just like reveal, 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 and the story just goes broader. But that's what book clubs also are about, right? Is sharing a book. I have another genre called The Author's Kiss. And the reason for it is that a book very much is like a kiss. It's like an embrace. And it's like a warm hug and whatever it has been. And if you feel that you're still, savoring it afterwards, then it's been a good book because it's stayed with you and it's left a good taste in your mouth, right? But let's talk about your one book where the title, as you said, that you found it really, this title, because I remember Terror Father, I remember you. That is quite a title that some people would steer away from. But, what was that book about that you think that kind of drew their attention to it?
Well, so it is about growing up in my incestuous family, and it does begin and end with the scene with my therapist, so everybody knows from the get-go that okay, she's going to be okay. And of course, just the fact that there's a book that they can hold in their hands, they're going to sort of figure she's going to be okay. So I figured that even though the title is kind of scary, just the fact that I wrote it is sort of a clue to the reader. Okay, but she is really okay because
Yes,
otherwise it wouldn't
yes.
be the book. Um, but that was the first book that I wrote and I think it had to be the first book that I wrote because it's sort of at the core of who I was growing up. And so I had to kind of get that narrative onto the page, sort of out of me and onto
Mhm.
paper, before then I could look at other aspects of my life, which is, basically what I've been doing since then. So it is exploring about, sort of what are the metaphors around growing up in such a family. There's so many metaphors around silence and keeping secrets. So in many ways, that's kind of the underlying theme of the book is how when you grow up in a family like that, you kind of don't have a language. Like I
Mhm.
never told anybody. So like you don't have a language to talk about it. And so it's sort of growing up in this silence and where you don't even really understand, as a kid that, well, what does this even mean? My father says he loves me, but this is how he's showing it. And so it's very confusing. So it's really more about that than, yeah, I mean, obviously there's the narrative, but I mean, that's the underlying theme of the book.
Yeah. And this is for a lot of people, sharing something like that is going to be relatable to someone else. It's also going to give them permission to start speaking about their own life, speaking about their own journey, and holding people accountable or freeing themselves from the grasp that it's had on them, finding the words to articulate it. And it becomes so much for other people that have been living in that terror and that don't know how. Is this normal? How do I explain it? And you've done that, and so that becomes a language that they can speak and something they can address.
Well, that's really true. I mean, I got so many emails from women after that, excuse me, after that book was published. And, really, they were the emails were sort of thanking me for telling their story,
Mm,
because they don't have a voice. I do. And so it was very empowering for them. But then just hearing their response to it was then very empowering for me. So it has this really amazing energy between sort of me as author and the reader. And I remember at one reading I gave in public at a bookstore, and afterwards people came up to talk to me, and there was one young woman sort of waiting in the back, and I sort of knew what she was going to, more or less what she was going to say. So she waited for everybody else to leave, and then she came up to me and she said, she was like kind of grasping the book like it was a lifeline, and she said that her father had done the same thing to her, and she said she'd never told anybody, not even her therapist, about it. I was the first person she had told, and it's like that's powerful.
yes,
And it's just like,
yes.
whoa.
And a lot of people, who say share your story. Well, who am I? What kind of story am I? I'm not famous. I'm not this and that. And it's not about the fame, right? It is about why the story needs to be told. As you said, for you, in many ways, it was that therapeutic story that had to be told in order to release it so you could move on to other things. But in
Yeah,
but in the telling of it, it became the igniter, the heart and soul igniter for other people, for them to start placing value on themselves and to be able to find that courage to speak out about what's happened to them and that it
yeah,
was wrong. Find a language, find an
yeah,
action. But we
yeah,
need that very often, that permission from other people in a way. If you try and talk about it to friends, it's like, oh, really? And they change the subject. But when you've read about it and it has written in a way that is connective, is resonant, then all of a sudden you found a language where you can explain it to people in a way that maybe they won't run, because most
yeah,
people do run from that subject, right?
yeah. No, you're right. And, there is such a thing, of course, as a celebrity memoir. And
Yeah.
that's not what we're talking about.
Yes.
But the voices of ordinary people, really, if you write it, your voice can become extraordinary. And because it is sort of seeking the human condition. I mean, that's what, people like us, we could write and tell our stories because it is about the human condition. And it is about seeking sort of, a sense of honesty and truth, and, just sharing that human narrative that people can relate to.
You just said two words, ordinary and extraordinary. People say to me, who do I interview? And I'm ordinary people doing extraordinary things. So relatable there. And of course, there's another book that you wrote after that, the How to Survive Death and Other Inconveniences, which, is great. I want to get to that, but I think one that should come after that is Lovesick, One Woman's Journey Through Sexual Addiction. Did that come about because of what had happened to you growing up?
Yes, exactly. And it's kind of interesting when I wrote the first book, obviously, nobody's born with the sex addiction.
Right.
I had got the addiction, acted out the addiction because my father had sexually molested me. I mean, he was the one who taught me sort of that sex is love and love is sex. I mean,
Yes.
so I got it all confused. And when I wrote the first book, theoretically, I could have put something about the sex addiction in it, but I did not. And sort of for two reasons. The first reason that I was more aware of is that um, I had so much shame about the addiction.
Yes. Mhm.
And there was like, I thought I would, oh, I'm never, other than my therapist, I was never going to tell anybody about it. I mean, nobody. But then I wrote the first book, it got published, the world continued to turn, good things happened. I thought, okay, well, maybe I can write about sex addiction. But now looking back at it artistically, the two subjects would not have fit in one book anyway,
Right, exactly. They needed to
because
stand alone.
they did. The voice of the first one is sort of, more of that young,
Yeah,
wounded person voice. And then the voice of Lovesick is not throughout the book, but to a large extent, is sort of more raw and kind of edgy. And so the two voices could never have fit in the same book. Plus, it would have been one heck of a long book. I mean,
yeah,
so,
yeah.
um, you have to sort of think of your life. Thematically in a way, and what are the different aspects of the self.
Yes,
And so there's this aspect of the self that grew up in this incestuous family. And then there's this aspect of the self who did spend quite a few years acting out the sex addiction. So each book has its own focus and theme, which I think is really important, particularly for beginning writers of memoir or creative nonfiction, to know don't cram your whole life into one book.
exactly. Exactly. But it's a repercussion of what had happened to you. A lot of people, and I'll open it up here. Yes, I was a rape victim, and in many, many ways, of course, it's the 70s, right? So, everything is about free love. Don't get so hung up on sex and all of that type of thing. And you actually identified sex with somebody loving you, right? The act of quote making love, if you can call it that, kind of was, oh, they must love me. Or, it's a loving act because you're constantly trying to make sense. You don't want to put violence with it, or you don't want to put control with it. You don't want to put that label there. So therefore, it must be a testament of something. And, you go seeking. And so are we love sick? Are we sex sick? Or are we seeking, loving approval or love?
Yeah, I mean, for me, the sex addiction was I was looking for love. I
Yes.
mean, it had almost nothing to do with sex itself. Like I didn't care about the sex part. I just thought, well, if I have sex with this man, he'll love me. And of course he didn't, because he was a sex addict as well. And sex addicts really don't know a whole lot about love. But
No. Or how to make love, actually.
yeah, yeah. So it was really a search for love and family and acceptance
Mhm.
and just, wanting to be cared for.
Yeah. Yeah. And it sends us down the wrong avenue, until kind of I think we wake up, right? And like, your first book is this is what happened to me. Yes. And it doesn't matter how much you find your courage, your strength, your abilities to move on from that, to speak about it in the book, it will always leave scars, right? Always.
Absolutely.
But and then of course, the reaction of that is the sex addiction, which in itself leaves a different scar. However much you forgive yourself, there's always that little feeling of cringing. Oh my God, I did what? All right.
Yeah.
And it's again, there is no blame or shame because we react to what has happened to us. And if there's no one to talk to, nowadays you have someone to talk to, you have therapy. I don't, I'm 70, nearly 71. So back in those days, you just shut up about it. Nobody was
Well,
interested. You didn't
yeah.
tell anyone.
Well, exactly. And on top of that, I mean, the whole concept of sex addiction didn't really come into
Yeah.
into our vocabulary or into the therapy until, oh, I think it was like mid 80s or
Mhm.
something. So, I mean, because I had been in therapy, but I didn't know I had a sex addiction.
Right.
They didn't know I had one. I
No.
mean, no, I mean, nobody knew about
Right.
you know, that this was a thing.
And a lot of people, it's like, oh, it's just free sex. I'm not hung up on it. But really, if you reverse them, you'll go back. There's been some abuse somewhere in the past, right? And this is just a form of trying to escape or make sense of find ourselves. And it's a peculiar way of doing it. But unfortunately, especially kind of with the times, kind of gave permission for that. So, yeah, again, kudos for finding the courage to speak about that because
Thank you.
I put this show under central expressions because a lot of people think that central is sex. It isn't. It's about being aware of all of your senses. It's being tuned into self, being central with life, really feeling life. You can't go through with what you've gone through without being in tuned and truly feeling every aspect of your life. And in many ways, the trauma, which is in one book, the results of that trauma in another, we'll get to the next one in a moment, you know, it all became about you being in tune to your senses. Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
It's a spam, and can I switch it off? Off. Thank you. I'm sorry. I always switch that off, so I don't know why suddenly my phone is on. I must have missed that today. But it's about being in tuned and giving yourself permission to trust all of your senses, not deny them, not turn them away, not ignore them. But it's how do you find joy in the simplest things of life when you've known such despair? And that really is turning those senses on and kind of turning that sensuality of life on and embracing it, which has got nothing to do with sex. I mean, it can result
That's
in
right.
that, but it is
Right.
really more to do with,
Right. No,
being
that's
attuned.
right. That's right. Yeah. No, exactly. And most of my writing is actually based in sort of sensory experience.
Mm-hmm.
That's how I sort of develop the narrative and how I kind of discover the metaphors of the experiences through sort of sensory imagery.
Yes, yes. And you're expressing it. You're expressing it in a way that relates to other people and kind of takes shame and blame out of it, shows them as you have been victimized, right? And permission to place value upon yourself. Don't wait for anybody else to place that stamp on you. There's a beautiful word called flawsome, and I relate it to the word, like the Japanese bowl that they break the bowl, they go put it back together with gold, and now it becomes more priceless. I say we can't get through life without having some shattering. So
Oh,
how about
absolutely.
we put ourselves back together with self-love?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
only we can do that.
Yeah, I mean, everybody has, scary, dangerous things happen to them, but it's really what do you do with
Yes.
that? How do you
Yes.
turn it inward? Do you turn it outward? Do you act it out in this way or that way? Do you ultimately try to find a way to use it as part of your healing process? So, yeah, it's really what you do with that damage that we all have.
Yes. And to understand you're not broken. You may have been shattered into many pieces, but you can put yourself back together with that self-love. And it's not your fault. Even if we did do things out of ignorance or out of something else, I say when you're aware, you care. When you care, you do something about it, but you can never be unaware. Well, when we're aware, oh God, this is what I'm hurting myself doing this, right? I'm punishing myself in doing this. Now you're aware, you can do something about it, right?
Yeah,
We don't need anybody else's judgment. We don't need anybody else giving you critique, right? They
that's
can give
right.
you encouragement, love yourself more, this, that, etc. But it is about our journey and that discovery to our own beautiful essence.
Yeah, yeah.
And you've had the courage to really not only do that, but become then that therapy for other people. Okay, how to survive death and other inconveniences. I'd like to know that one.
Yeah, so that
You're really
so
great on titles. Yeah.
thank you. Thank you. Yeah, so the first two books are, a little bit on the dark side. And then as a person and as a writer, I kind of evolved from that. And my
You
more
spent it.
recent,
You spent it. Yeah.
yes, my more recent books are much more ironic, as you can, as one could tell from How to Survive Death and Other Inconveniences. And I mean, there's some dark. It's a memoir in essay form, so it's a collection of essays, but they all have this common theme. And it's not just about physical death, although it started that way because I'm actually terrified of dying, and but I'm a hypochondriac, so that's very difficult to be. Like if I have a headache, oh my God, it's a brain tumor, you know. So
My sister would get on well.
yeah, so it sort of started with that, but then I realized that there really these sort of other forms of death, kind of spiritual and emotional death. So, say going through a divorce, or you know, but the or the like the loss of a pet or something like
Yes.
that, which is a physical death, but just you know, or just like because my father uh is Jewish, and obviously I'm Jewish, I grew up kind of rejecting the religion just
Mm,
because I associated it with my father. And you know, I'm fine now. I embrace it, but for a long time, it was sort of I felt kind of spiritually lost.
mm,
So, which is a form of death. So the book really is in three sections, and it sort of revolves around kind of the physical aspects, the emotional aspects, and the spiritual aspects of death. But a lot of the essays are really sort of quite ironic and, you know, a little bit poking fun at myself. And but it just but it's such, you know, when you take a topic like that and you think about all the different ways you can sort of think about death, it became a pretty interesting writing journey, really,
yeah.
to sort of dig down and kind of explore that.
Well, your first book brought a death about to what happened to you. Your second book, death about repercussions of that. And now this is kind of looking at all of your endings. But the thing is, if we don't register our endings, and we can mourn them, we need to mourn them, right?
Yeah,
But then let that go, spend the emotion, right? Don't become emotional about them. Um, and then, once you feel, oh, that's done. I can now open the door to new opportunities. But you can't do that if you don't acknowledge the death of something.
exactly, exactly. So that was just you
What
know,
are
and
the other inconveniences?
well, the other inconveniences are things like, you know, the emotional deaths. I mean, things like, you know, I've been divorced twice, and just the end of relationships, and you know, just sort of mistakes that you make along the way, and that feel like, oh my God, I just did something awful and I feel like you know, I'm going to die or something. I
Yeah.
mean, just you know, more some lighthearted, some sort of dark, but that's what why I wanted to be sure it wasn't just about, you know, surviving like the physical death, but just which of course I'm still trying to do. But but yes, but looking at just sort of really taking the theme of death and
Mm.
seeing how far I could kind of push it to look at, you know, just different aspects of like kind of miniature deaths, things that can happen to us that we feel really sad or bad about.
Yes. And we can't escape them. They're
Right.
always going to be there. Um, but we're going to have many deaths in our life. I call them end of chapters. As I don't look at things when people say, "Oh, I've failed many times." I go, "No, you redirected many times. You learned many times." Failure for me is people who give up altogether. But if you got back up and you redirected, you didn't fail, you
That's
redirected
right.
it. And if
That's right.
something came to an end and you've accepted it comes to an end and you mourn it, you let it go like you would anything because it's come to an end. Death is an end of the
Yeah.
physical, not of the spiritual, not of the essence of you, but death of a relationship. It's never going to be that relationship again, right? And there's so many little deaths that we have along the way that I think it's like, let's not panic too much about them and just understand their end of chapters. And that just means there's a new chapter to be written. And
That's
talking
right.
about new chapters to be written, selected misdemeanors essays at the mercy of the reader. This is another intriguing title. You are
Thank
master of
you.
titles.
Thank you.
And this is, of course, your latest book. So, what is
Yes.
this one about?
Yeah, so this one, here it is. So this is a collection of flash essays. And a flash essay is just something that's very short. And so, but I mean, it's the form of it is short. It's anywhere from, oh gosh, maybe some of them are a paragraph. Most of them are about maybe 3 to 5 pages, something like that. There are a couple of ones that are a little bit longer, but basically the form is short, so it's just very contained. But inside is vast because you sort of have to pack it with a lot of stuff inside of it. And so and you do that kind of by not just telling the story, the narrative of what happened, like this happened to me, that happened to me. That's sort of like an anecdote. So a flash essay is not an anecdote of, oh, this happened to me. It's really, what did that mean? And so
Mm.
it's trying to discover the metaphor of what an event means. And so that's what so there's 71 of them. And just for an example, one of the essays is, it's seemingly almost about kind of nothing. I was in college, and I was an intern on Capitol Hill. I was at a dinner party, and this woman served a salad. There was a strawberry. There's a worm in the strawberry.
Oh,
So, and I was young and sort of, didn't know how to kind of speak up. Yeah. So I was holding this strawberry with a worm, and I didn't know what to do. I didn't know if I should eat it, not eat it, tell the woman about it. What should I do? And so on the surface, so what I just said to you now, that's the anecdote.
right.
But the way that I describe it, the way I develop this narrative, is that it's really about the narrator's inability to make decisions because she's in a place in her life, she's about to graduate college. So, should she marry? Should she pursue a job in Washington, D.C. on Capitol Hill? Should she have children? It was a time when I was full of indecisions. I have no idea what I'm doing. And so you just take something as simple as this little
Worm in
dinner
the
party
strawberry.
with a worm in the strawberry, and use that worm in the strawberry as a metaphor for, life's indecisions and how do you decide what to do. So it's sort
A
of
good
like
way of
that.
reflecting on something, isn't it? It's kind of training our brain to not look at the complexity of everything, but to kind of simplify in many ways by being more directional. All right,
Yeah,
getting to the point of something. Worm and a strawberry. Do I tell her about it? Do I eat it? Do I put it down? Do I get married? Do I have kids? Do I have a career? What do I want to do next? And if we say to ourselves, what do I want to do next? Immediately, so many things flood us or nothing floods us, and then we start to panic. But if you
yeah,
kind of do it in a way that is a little more on point, it kind of gives you, oh, okay, but these are my options.
yeah, yeah, exactly. And so the essays are about also relationships with inappropriate men. And like there's one essay about so I lived in Galveston, Texas for a while, and it's sort of the kind of a lot of seedy bars along the Gulf Coast there. And I was married, unhappily married, and I was alone. My husband was out of town. I was alone in this bar one night, sort of getting drunk.
Mhm.
And I decided, oh, I think I'll get it divorced. And when I was very decisive, actually, at the time when I shouldn't have been.
The
And
bell went off.
yeah, but in a deeper level, it is about kind of loneliness and loss and what you
Yes.
do in a relationship where your husband sort of loves you, but not enough,
Yeah,
and it's just not working out.
become
And
complacent. Hmm.
yeah, and so, again, that's sort of the underlying theme of the essay. But sort of as a general arc of the whole book, it's really about a narrator who wants to find like home, like capital H, like
Mm,
safety, comfort, who wants to find home, but her actions sort of work against it.
mm.
Like, so there's this conflict between what I, as narrator, think I want, but my behaviors that sort of push against that, and how do those ultimately get resolved? So that's sort of the overlying theme of the book.
I think in your entire writing and in reflecting, upon yourself and the way you see yourself, which you're very, very tuned into yourself, which is good. And it just sheds light on for people where there's a light over there in the corner and they're kind of sitting in the dark. There's not much light here. I can't see what the problem is. Well, there's a light over there, going to switch on. And your writing in many ways is that light. Sorry, my hair is going nuts today. It's a light that switches on that goes, I haven't seen it from that point of view. I haven't seen it from that perspective. And I think that's something that, we need to shed light on things that sometimes we don't want to see. But then when we read something that goes, okay,
Yeah,
now I see it. I can't unsee it. It means I've got
yeah.
to do something about it.
Yeah. And sort of the beauty of the flash essay. So there's 71 essays in the book. And sort of the beauty of it is that when you think of your life, the tendency, which is what I did, in fact, is to initially write about these big events, like growing up in this kind of family, spending, 28 days in rehab for sex addiction. But when you think about it, most of life is made up of these sort of minuscule little moments. I mean, like what is it that happens between these big events? And the flash form is perfect for something like that, is that you can really take these sort of kind of small moments of betrayal, or kind of momentary moments of loss, or, miniature forms of sorrow, whatever it's going to be. But beauty as well. I mean, there's some essays about sort of the ephemeralness of beauty, but because so much happens in the in between the big moments. And so the flash essay, I think, is just perfect for that. So that's what this book kind of the form of this book is around, that idea.
Kind of igniting the story in the reader.
Yeah, because I think that somebody who reads the book will start seeing, oh, there was this little thing that happened to me, and maybe I should pay attention to it. What did that mean? Because sometimes it's easier to see these big kind of global things, but most of life is not those big global things.
It is actually made up of all the little things inside each and every one of us that becomes a global thing, right?
Yeah,
So if we
yeah,
all pay attention to the little things inside of us and, do the rectification that we need to do there, I would say that when we heal and rise up to a higher consciousness, we become the healers of the world. And so it isn't about the pointing of the finger they did. I mean, your father's so 100% accountable for what he did, right? But
right. But the book is not about revenge at
right,
all.
right.
Yeah,
And when we're asked to forgive a perpetrator, it's like, how can you forgive him? You're not condoning, you're not forgiving the action, but you're forgiving the person because what happened to them to make them feel that this was all right, right? So there's always that domino effect. Hurt people hurt people. And what we need to do is pay attention to the people that are hurt. And help them heal themselves. We can't heal them. We can give them the tools to heal themselves so they won't go on hurting other people. Right.
yeah,
And that's really kind of what I feel you're bringing to attention is I was hurt. This is what I did. This was my reaction to what I was hurt. This was what happened, but this is what I did. And if all of everything that you've done has been about self-awareness. It's been about that self-discovery of I did this based on that reaction.
yeah,
Now I know better, I can do something different. And that's the thing is how many people walk around self-aware. It's always the outside living. Right? How many
yeah,
followers? How many this? How many of that? How pretty do I look? Do I need another boob job? Or do I need a facelift? Do I need all of that? Will I get approved on if I do that? And it's please let all of that go. None of that ever will make you happy or connected to yourself. It's that
right.
willing to look in at everything that's ever happened to you and put yourself back together with self-love. And then
Yeah,
that love will be so full it will runneth over, right? So in your books, it is an invitational to love, to self-love with other people,
yeah,
because you can't write what you've written without finding self-love yourself.
yeah. No, that's really true.
So,
Yeah.
is there another book coming up?
Well, I haven't started another one yet. I'm sort of, things are kind of marinating along, but I just I'm co-chair now of this writing program where I teach, and that is a lot of work. And but I'm really enjoying it, and I'm also teaching as I'm co-chairing, and it's like it's something I really want to do, and I will get back to writing, I know, but for now I'm really happy just sort of doing work for this program that I believe in, because it's and I just think of all of our students who, whether they're writing fiction or poetry or creative nonfiction, who are now finding their voices.
Yes.
And there's something that's so exciting about that. So right now I'm kind of happy just spending some time doing that. But um, but I'm kind of writing in my head a little bit. Uh, and there may be one or two pieces of paper with some words on it. But we'll sort of see. I'm not sure where it's going, of course, but we'll sort of see where it's going to go.
Well, that's one thing when interviewing writers. It's like you may have an idea and a gist, whether it's fiction or whatever it is, but when the fingers hit the keyboard or the typewriter, it takes on a world of its own. It's like
Oh yeah,
completely everything gets downloaded through you, and if you don't dictate and don't fight it and go with it, right? Reading it back, it goes, what? I find that when I wrote my own, it's like um, it became actually, as I said with you, like therapy. For me, it was looking at the things that happened, but what happened because of it. But even just looking at those things, and it's like my daughter commented on one thing that happened to me as a child that I just have flippantly blown off. You know, Boarding school kids dragging me by the hair. They dug a hole in the ground to bury me as a weed because I was asthmatic and couldn't do a lot of the sporty things. The stupid thing is they dug the hole underneath the principal's window. So, so she caught them. And it's like I look at it, kind of now, it's funny. And my daughter goes, but mom, that was horrible. And it's like, there's lots of little things like that, but you learn to laugh at them. You learn to let them go, because I've learned to look at it, it's a reflection on them, not me. Right?
yeah,
It's only going through that process of that self-discovery, of opening up those doors, of allowing yourself to be spent in a way that you express, that you discover that, and that you give yourself that own approval. They have to own their action, right? I don't have to take it on. But again, if we look to why they thought that was okay, then they're the ones that need the help.
yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
So I think a lot of it is, I mean, everything you've done, even in the short essays, is all a reflection of your journey from a different point of view at different stages of your life. And this misdemeanor one, the short ones, is just for people, I think, as I said, switching on that light that they've avoided. And now it shed lights on something where now you can go back to the other books, because maybe there is sexual addiction in your life in some way. You've had many partners, nobody's ever you've never connected with anyone, but it means you're searching in all the wrong places with all the wrong people.
Yeah, exactly.
Do you come from a family of abuse? It doesn't have to be sexual abuse. It could have been verbal, emotional, all sorts of abuse. And when we actually understand it's okay to own our story, and if other people feel uncomfortable, we don't just go lathering it on. But the beautiful thing about a book or sharing it in a blog or podcast or any other way is people can listen or read or not. But if they're ready to, it's here. And it
That's
will
right.
always shed light on their own life.
Yeah,
That's what it's about.
yeah. No, that's absolutely true. Yeah.
So you're teaching right now. A book is fermenting in the head, and I'd love to know what that is when that comes out. You have a website here, which kind of shows everything that's going on, your books and your teachings. We've got the death one here. Oh, the Pat Boone Club. What is that?
Yeah, so my third book actually was the Pat Boone Fan Club, My Life as a White Anglo-Saxon Jew. So for those of you who don't know Pat Boone, he was a sort of early 60s pop music idol, and he was known sort of the exact opposite of Elvis. Elvis was sort of the bad boy, and Pat Boone was sort of the
The
good,
wholesome. Yeah.
yeah, very wholesome, very clean cut. And so growing up, and he had four daughters. So growing up, I really wanted him to adopt me.
Yeah.
And it's I really wanted, he was sort of the antithesis of, I was talking about Judaism earlier. So he's sort of the antithesis. He's very Christian. He's sort of the antithesis of my Jewish father. So I sort of thought, well, Pat Boone adopted me, everything would be fine. And so the whole book, there are about maybe only three or four essays actually about Pat Boone, because I ultimately actually did meet him as an adult and told him what he had meant to me growing up.
Oh,
So
neat.
yeah, so it's pretty cool. It sort of came full circle.
Yeah.
And so there are a few essays about him, but more than that, it's also about uh, me as narrator, my misguided search for spirituality. Like
Mm,
looking for sort of icons or figures, talismans, whatever
yeah.
that could offer me a sense of spirituality, and most of them were rather misguided. But
Mm.
it's also sort of like the How to Survive Death book. It's very it's ironic in many ways. The voice is supposed to sort of poke a little bit of fun at the narrator, like she's off on a quest to find spirituality. Will I find it with Pat Boone? Will I find it with this
Yeah.
TV star? I mean, just whoever. And also, I did spend time working on a kibbutz in Israel. And so there's that aspect of it too, and sort of trying to see, well, how do I fit in here? So it's about the theme, basically the overall theme is this sort of searching here, searching there, trying to find myself through a kind of in a spiritual light.
You've got Fearless Confessions. You've got If the Girl Never Learns,
That's
poems.
poetry, yeah.
Mhm. You've got Craning Colors for Serial Killers. Okay,
That's
you got to tell us about this one.
well, it's so I wrote so serial crayon colors for serial killers is poetry, and I wrote it during the pandemic, during the lockdown, and so it's sort of it's not like serial killers, real
Mhm.
people necessarily, but just so many people were dying, and it was such a scary time. And so it sort of reflects my emotional state at this really incredibly scary time in our sort of global history when it was just, hundreds of thousands of people were just
Mm.
dying. And so that's so even though the title is kind of ironic, it's a little bit dark, as one might
You do
imagine.
darkness well, though.
I do.
Yes,
I kind of, that's my niche.
yes. What is this one here? Hieroglyphics in neon.
Oh,
Right.
hieroglyphics in the, yeah, that was my first poetry collection. And it's really just, it's the poetry collection itself isn't, it's really just rather disparate poems. It's nothing, it's partly my fascination with ancient Egypt. Like, I wanted to be a pharaoh. And so sort of a fantasy around that. Yeah.
And hey, open with fantasies. Fantasies are good, folks. They really are.
Yeah. And they're good to write about
Yeah.
because it's like, even though it's a fantasy and something that's never going to happen, it still can sort of shed light on the self. Like, why do you want to be this person, or what is that fantasy about? So it's still about the self. even though it's sort of your imagination. I mean, obviously our imagination, our fantasies are part of who we are.
Mm. And I think, a lot of people kind of, I put a book out last year called Our Forgotten Children, which is an anthology around the raising of our children. And this year I'm gathering authors for Our Forgotten Seniors, um, where we're going to celebrate what the seniors have contributed, face the challenges, and also the warning to the youth on seniorship. Start preparing now. And a lot of the reason for behind that is that for so many people, it's like, especially Western cultures, is you reach a certain age, well, you're out to pasture now. Your word, doesn't count. You're too old. You've got nothing to say. Who wants to listen to you? And we need to change that narrative. We need to change that considerably because we haven't spent the years, the decades getting to where we're at to be dismissed now. We're mindful of information and wisdom
Yeah,
that's ready to be
absolutely.
shared, and it's like needs to be heard. So I think, the longer we've been here and the more we've had perspective on our lives, the deeper we can go. And I think, you're doing that in your books, and you're doing it with tongue in cheek, or you're doing it with a little darkness where people can switch on the light and see for themselves. Um, and that needs to be shared, that needs to be told, right?
Yeah. Yeah, no, I completely agree. Um, I mean, I feel like I still have a lot to contribute both as a writer and as a teacher of writing.
Yeah,
And I love both, and they sort of feed each other, you know.
yes,
I mean, teaching writing, learning from my students, engaging with younger writers or beginning writers, whatever, where I teach, it's non-traditional. So we
mm,
have traditionally aged students all the way up to, like, I think our oldest student is 83, which I
mm,
think I love
lovely.
that. Yeah,
Yes,
I mean, she wants a new career in writing. She had another career, and now she wants to be a writer.
excellent. And it's
So
never too late until our lights go out, folks. So
that's
we're still
right.
productive. So
Yeah, that's right.
wonderful. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. My brother taught all ages, like high school right up to it, and he loved the university level because the people that really signed up are the people that really wanted to learn to write.
that's right.
Yeah,
That's exactly right. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. So, I mean, this is absolutely wonderful. I love, everything that you're doing. So now let's talk about how everybody can get hold of you, where they can get hold of your book, your
Sure.
social medias, all of that.
Okay, so this is my new book, Selected Misdemeanors, Essays at the Mercy of the Reader. And it and all of my books, you can read more about them on my website, which is SueWilliamSilverman.com. So that's all one, just my whole name, SueWilliamSilverman.com. And my it's very easy. Actually, my Facebook and Instagram are also just Sue William Silverman. You can find me there. And I hope that if you're a writer, that you start, finding your voice and your narrative. If you're a reader, kudos to you. Reading is an amazing way to spend some time. As I say, growing up, I just read all the time. And it just really deepened who I was as a person, just sort of reading about other, whether it's fiction or nonfiction. So great. And if you're just sort of learning more about life, welcome to you as well. So yes, so please visit my website, and I'd love to, and if my contact information is on my website, so if you want to reach out to me, I answer every email that I get.
So all you have to do is put her name into Amazon and her entire books come up there as well. And I'm going to spell it out for the people listening. So Sue Williams Silverman, which is SueWilliamSilverman.com. And it's Sue Williams Silverman on Instagram and on Facebook, and Sue Silverman on Twitter. So if you put in the name in Amazon, all of her books are there. Probably a good one to start off with is the father one, to kind of get the foundation of who she is. And you may know somebody who's going through something, and then they don't want to talk about it or don't know how to talk about it. And maybe reading the book gives you an insight, and maybe it could be just, I've read this great book, I'd love to talk to you about it, and let them open up, be that invitation. The same with the sex addiction. I mean, you look at it, we used to be called promiscuous, and people didn't realize we're just searching. We're
Yeah,
just searching for love. And we
very
found it
much.
in all the wrong places. Or
Yeah,
never
very
found it,
much.
actually.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And really, ultimately, if you really are looking for real love, true love, love yourself first. And then the frequency that you're at will attract the right people. But don't look for someone to complete you, someone to compliment you, but first compliment yourself. So that's important. Keep on writing, please. I love the whole everywhere you're going on this, and it's that you're kind of a one woman perspective through your life, shedding light and igniting thought in others, which is what we need to have and what a good author should do. So thank you so much.
Well, thank you for the opportunity. It was delightful talking to you, and I really appreciate it. So, and nice to meet you as well. Thank you.
Right back at you, right back at you. So, yes, central expressions. Why this particular genre? Because she really knows how to express herself. In all of her senses, she's aware. She's been vulnerable enough to actually share everything right from her gut, her soul, her very being. That is not only courageous and strong and brave, but it's also that illumination that we need to reflect on our own lives. So get her books, folks. Remember, a book is a wonderful gift that keeps on giving. And reach out to her and let her know how it's opened the doors to your own heart and soul and spirit. So until next time, folks, bye for now. We hope that you enjoyed the show. There are so many more for you here on selfdiscoverywisdom.com. Just go to the podcast tag at the top there and you will see all the many genres and all 3,000 shows ready for your listening. We are here to serve you, to help you on your journey of life, and we know that through inspiration it begets invitation. We are supported by you, the listeners, and those that we interview. Anything that you can spare us in donation would be greatly accepted, and we do hope that you enjoy the next show.